Hi there, Glenn here from Digital Photography Courses. So this is the next in the sessions that we've been looking at about the different ways to mount your Move Shoot Move Rotator onto different sort of ball heads, etc. So what we've already looked at in previous episodes is looking at a ball head, we've looked at a three-way head, and we've looked at a tilt head. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to have a look at using a wedge. Now, I do not have the MSM wedge. They make a wedge, apparently it's really quite good. I haven't tried it, but I'm assuming it's very, very good. The other products are good. And so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to use this wedge, which is actually the Star Adventurer one, the one that comes with the Skywatcher Star Adventurer, which is the tracker I use for if I'm using bigger lenses. So if I'm using 200, 300, 400mm lenses, I tend to use the Skywatcher instead. But the good news is I can use the mount here, the wedge, from that, and I can use this with the MSM. And I have to say, this is actually probably one of my favourite methods. It just makes life so easy. So to get this mounted, the Star Adventure comes with its own bracket, and that bracket is this here, and as you can see that bracket is actually a 3/8. So what you cannot do is fit this onto this base here, this hole here, because it's too big. But what we can do is we can fit it into this section here, and to do that, that's absolutely fine. So we'll pop that in there. Now I say I haven't got the MSM one, so I'm not sure if it's a 1/4 inch or a 3/8 inch. I suspect it might be a 1/4 inch with an adapter, with one of these adapters, but I'm not totally sure at this stage. So we're just going to tighten this off, make sure it's good and tight, and now we can slide this into this bracket, lock it nicely in place. And obviously what we would do is we would have this pointing up along this line to the celestial pole, the north or south celestial pole. Here in the UK that's made easy because we've got Polaris, and so I've actually sort of preset this up. What I like to do is go out beforehand, get my tripod set up, maybe use a compass or a compass app on my phone, get it aligned nicely first of all. On the Star Adventurer, or on most wedges, let me just loosen this off for you. So this bit at the bottom is just a leveling base. This just sort of helps me get everything level. But what I can actually do is if I just turn this, you can see there's a scale here. So this scale is your altitude scale, and we're at 52 degrees. So what it basically means is I can adjust that to 52 degrees, and it should be pointing if it's pointing north, it should then be pointing at Polaris. So let me just level that base up again and get it more or less pointing north. Okay, so we'll lock that off. Now, one of the great things about these bases is, or more to the point, the problem with the other bases, so if you use a ball head or one of the other three-way head or anything like that, then they tend to drop. So what tends to happen is you tend to lock them in position, and then the weight tends to drop them down a little bit. So you always find yourself aiming slightly high so that you can, allow for that drop. The great thing about these is they are beautifully adjustable for fine tuning. And so what I can use here is on the scale, I can look at this scale, I can loosen off this locking bolt, and as I turn this scale, I can move it to 52 degrees, or wherever it's needed. Okay, so I can do that. So there you go, I've got my alignment, and then there's a locking nut here that I can lock that into place with. So that's given me my height. Just fine tune that down a bit, there you go. So that's given me my height, and the next thing I want to do is do my left to right adjustment. So I've got it kind of, the Polaris in my case is lined up nicely, and so what I'll do is I'll just turn this around towards you. There we go, so you can see what's going on. Okay, so we have these two screws, and they will both lock in position. And what these allow us to do, we unscrew one and tighten the other. And you can see that as I do that, I'm able to rotate the base slightly. Now, it's only a few degrees, so the trick is you get it lined up pretty close first of all, and then this is fine tuning. And this ability to fine tune is just great. It just makes life so much easier, it really does. So then when you've got it lined up nicely, you want to make sure that these screws are completely locked into position, because if they're not locked in, what can happen is this can move, see? And that's obviously not going to work at all. So make sure that once you're lined up, that these screws are both tightened up. Okay, so let me just whiz it back to its kind of real life position, if you like. There we go. Oops. Been careful not to unscrew it. There we are. Obviously you would have had this all level and everything. Okay. Oops, turn the wrong screw there. Okay. So then it's just simply a case of popping the camera on the top and locking it into place, and then we have our target acquisition. So in my case here, we're looking kind of, the MSN is aligned to Polaris here in the Northern Hemisphere. That's aligned to Polaris, and now I can maybe choose the Orion Nebula or some target in this direction here. Okay, so the MSN is really intended for kind of wide angle lenses, and it's intended for maybe short telephotos, so up to 100mm, possibly 135. Now, what I generally find is that I can normally get in the region of 10 to 12 times the exposure time that I would get without the MSN or without tracking. So what I mean by that is, this is a 20mm lens. It's on a D750, and so the exposure time using the 500 rule would be around about 20-25 seconds. I tend to err on the side of caution, so I tend to go with 20 seconds. So if I go 20 seconds times 10, that's 200 seconds. 200 seconds, 180 seconds is 3 minutes. So you can see I'm getting around about 3.5, maybe 4 minutes exposure with a 20mm lens. If I take that lens to maybe a 100mm, I've got a 105 that I use sometimes. With the 105, I can go 500 divided by 100, gives me 5 times 10, because I'm using the MSM, the Move Shoot Move. That's going to give me around about 50 seconds, 10 to 12 times, so around about 50 seconds to a minute. Now, I have actually used this setup and been able to get 90-second exposures, and sometimes maybe even a little bit more. But I'd prefer to err on the side of caution. I'd sooner go a little bit shorter and maybe take more pictures and stack more pictures. So, nice little setup. Have to say, probably one of my favourite setups, the most stable, and having the wedge there already is really quite useful. So there you go, guys. I hope you found that useful, and I've got another setup which I'm going to look at, and hopefully I'll see you again soon. I'll post links to the other videos if you want to have a look at the other videos, and thank you for your time. All the best. Bye.